for those who don't know me. I am Sarah, one of the pastors here, and I'd like to welcome you here. And just as you're finding your seat, I just want to let you know, if you are new today or this is your first time, I just want to clear a few things, that we don't usually have the room so beautifully set out, or the archway. Feel free, as you're going out, you could do a bit of a photo booth something and have your photo taken under the archway. And it is not usual that we have champagne glasses sitting out there. I just want to let you know that that is not our usual morning tea. Tim Tams and champagne, although it does sound nice. But no, it is not happening this morning. It happens to be because of the wedding this afternoon. So yeah, if you're thinking, wow, this is my first time at church and wow, I'm coming back because there's champers, hate to break it to you, it's not the case. Not the case at all. We're offering tea, coffee, hot chocolate or water, which can be a bit disappointing if that's where you were going. And if you've pressed your nose against the window of the upper room, that is not our usual morning tea setup either. So, again, hate to break it to you. We do go with the KISS method of life, just keeping it simple. And our usual morning tea is really lovely because there is tea, coffee, hot chocolate and Tim Tams and all those sorts of wonderful things. Now, getting on to what I would like to, I feel to be talking about today. This is something that's been brewing in me for a couple of weeks, probably a month or so. And then it just so happens that last week Gary and then the week before Tanika were also hitting upon the heart. And even Gary said this morning, and it's one of his common lines, about we're seeking the heart of God. And I think it was a beautiful reflection of that last week at the end of the service, where the permission was given for worshipping God in whatever way worked for you. Whether it was in the seats, on your knees, at the front, at the back, with or without flags, dancing, waving, we're really pressing into the heart. And I'm hoping that today won't be just a repetition of what has been said, because I want to highlight something. There are many, many times in my life where there's a particular verse coming up that has really hits home when I am struggling. So when I get there, I will share accordingly. This is a verse I'd like to start with in 2 Kings chapter 17. This is from chapter 7. So verses 1 to 6, we've had Hoshea, who was the son of Elah, become king of Israel. But he negotiated an alliance with Egypt, bringing on the wrath of Assyria. Now, those of you who like to watch, not quite Days of Our Lives, but movies where it's sort of war and action and all this sort of thing, it can be a little tricky, I find it, maybe it's just a me problem, I find it tricky to work out who is who and where are they and who is good and who is bad. But when I see King of Israel, I know this is something I need to be honing in on. He had negotiated an alliance with Egypt, bringing on the wrath of Assyria. Now, Hoshea actually did evil and ended up being captured by the king of Assyria. And King of Assyria laid siege to the land for 3 years, deporting the Israelites to Assyria. And this is where we pick it up in verse 7. So the Israelites are in Assyria. So they're already under, like they're captured. It's not, a bed of roses. It's a life of not good. All this took place because the Israelites had sinned against the Lord their God, who had brought them up out of Egypt from under the power of Pharaoh, king of Egypt. They worshipped other gods and followed the practices of the nations the Lord had driven out before them, as well as the practices that the kings of Israel had introduced. The Israelites secretly did things against the Lord their God that were not right. From watchtower to fortified city, they built themselves high places in all their towns. The verse that really struck me here was the Israelites secretly did things against the Lord their God that were not right. When I read that, I was thinking, what were the Israelites thinking? I mean, it's already a thought as to what are the Israelites thinking when they get saved and then they sin, and then they get saved and then they're moved and they sin, and they, even the story of Moses eventually gets them out of Egypt. But then days later, they're whinging because they have no food, and they're whinging because where are we going? And it's easy to say, what were they thinking? But actually, that's what are we thinking much of the time as we live our lives. But this really struck me is, why did the Israelites think that they could secretly do things against the Lord their God that were not right? It really puzzles me that was their heart. But it's one thing to sin against God and do it possibly knowingly or unknowingly, or I'll just quietly put some money over here. But that thought to even think God won't know. I mean, we're talking about the God that created the universe and the stars and kept saving them and getting them out of trouble. And the grains of sand and, the stories that had gone before them as to how they even got to that place. And that would have been a time and a culture where a lot of their things that they're knowing and that they're learning is from stories. Stories passed down from generation to generation. And yet, so many times in the Bible, we are told about God and our hearts. So I've picked out a few verses here to just highlight that and help guide us and remind us that God sees your heart. Psalm 37 verse 4, take delight in the Lord and he will give you the desires of your heart. This is one of the verses that I have held on to because it's guiding me to actually just look to God first and foremost. It doesn't matter what life is happening around me, whether it's good or bad or difficult. If I take delight in the Lord, first and foremost, he will give me the desires of my heart. So if I'm praying for something or I'm really wanting something to happen, I've got to go to God first. This is go back to God. Take delight in the Lord. How do we take delight in the Lord? We are worshipping him. And worship can look like singing and praising and waving your hands and dancing and waving flags. And if that works for you in the middle of your workplace or on the bus or in the shopping centre, go for it. If you don't feel comfortable doing that, then I think God is understanding of that. But where are your thoughts? Where is your heart? Is it going back to God? God, this situation is rubbish and I want it to go here, and please God, can it go in that direction? Actually, it's not looking like that at the minute. You've got to go back to God. Matthew chapter 6, a couple of verses are coming from this chapter. But when you give to the needy, do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing, so that your giving may be in secret. Then your Father, who sees what is done in secret, will reward you. So we had that verse in Kings where the Israelites thought that they could secretly do evil against God. Obviously it didn't work. Here we are being encouraged to secretly do things for good, of a good, loving, caring nature, because God sees that. So instead of going around boasting and pumping up our own tyres, and did I tell you I've given money here? Did I tell you I went and did this and I've gone and done that? What's our heart? What's our heart position when we're doing that? Are we actually doing this with the idea of, oh, just wait till I tell all my friends? Just wait till I, maybe as a pastor, can announce that from the front. Can I just tell you all the good things I've done this week? The position of my heart is of boasting. And also when I am maybe serving food to someone or making a meal and giving it to them, it's not for the heart of serving them, it's for the heart of, oh, wait till I tell everyone else and pump up my own tyres. So the heart really, really matters. And obviously God sees it. If you think that God doesn't see everything in your heart, you're crazy. Because I can tell you, not that I'm God obviously, but I think on his behalf, I'll just let you know, he sees what is in your heart. If he made you, he knows what's in your heart. This is a verse that I've really held close. Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth where moths and vermin destroy and where thieves break in and steal. But store up for yourselves treasures in heaven where moths and vermin do not destroy and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. So for me personally, this is something that's I've had to hold on to across the years, especially regarding, say, family or where I am, whether I'm a mum at home, whether I'm doing paid work, whether I'm getting involved in whatever I've got involved in. If my heart is for my children and my family to serve and be with God, then God sees that, and I'm trying to work that out. I'm trying to work with my family. I'm trying to pray for them and bless them and guide them. And it can appear many times that that's actually not working. It can also appear maybe within a job I'm doing. What am I here for? What am I doing? I'm not getting anywhere. But I believe that this is where I'm meant to be. The treasure of my heart at that time is, I believe I'm meant to be here, God. So I'm doing whatever I'm doing. I'm praying, I'm serving, I'm trying to be joyful and happy in situations that are maybe not joyful and happy or welcoming, because the people around might be just a bit negative or a bit whingy or a bit things aren't fair and things aren't going right, or maybe as a teacher within a classroom the kids are not responding as I bounce in and say, hey, good morning everyone, and then they're not picking up on that joy, and behaviour maybe goes down the drain a bit or whatever. But I know that that's where I'm meant to be. So if that's what my heart is, that's my heart's desire, I have held on to this because I believe that God sees that and will honour what I'm trying to do. And it's not up to me. Like, other people's joy or happiness or decisions that they make is actually not based on me, as in it's my fault and I've got to work harder. I've got to go in, we all have to go in and do what we are called to do. If God calls you to be somewhere, I talk about fishing in your own pond. If God calls you to be at that pond, then work it. Work it for God. Hand it to God, and God actually knows your heart's desires. I know that many of you have had or are having difficult things to deal with. I'd like to refer especially to family, and it can be you're married with a couple of kids, lots of kids, no kids, one kid, you're married, you're not. It could be you're single, it could be wherever you are. Family is not just two people coming together and having kids. We are all part of a family. Somebody hatched you at some point, irrespective of whether you have ended up married and having kids of your own. You have family. Now, maybe it's family you wouldn't have chosen if you had that opportunity, but you have parents. You are connected. We are all connected to others. In our church family, we are connected here. We might not feel connected to absolutely everybody, but we are connected to somebody or a few people or our life group. Or we've got the people we like to pray for and pray with, or we see them at playgroup, or we catch up for coffee, or we come to the prayer morning on Wednesday. We are all connected. And what I would like to challenge us on and remind us that as we think about family, and that is the treasure of our heart, to increase and build our family, as in get more people to see what Jesus is really about. Some of us have a great gift of being out and talking to anyone and everyone about God. Others of us are more reticent and we just do it in a more quieter way. Maybe we do it via befriending, serving meals, saying hello, shouting a coffee. And none of it is better than another, because it's all based on your personality. It would be absolutely fake of me to go out and stand in a public environment and start talking about God. I would be so nervous, I wouldn't be able to get the words out. If that is what God called me to do, obviously I would do it, but I don't believe that's what God's calling me to do. God's calling me to share the gospel via other means and ways. But if everyone was like me, it'd be very boring. So we've all got our gifts and our talents and our opportunities, our ways of sharing the gospel. But I also want to challenge that whatever is on your heart, is it in alignment with God? And how many of us have secrets in our heart that we're thinking we're hiding from God? I think it's all of us at times. And I would like to think it's at times, but we overcome that. We think, oh yeah, how silly, God, you can see this. But we can't have stuff in the darkness. This is where addictions come into place, and some of us have addictions, and it might be that 5 coffees a day. It might be something more sinister. But whatever is in the dark, that's actually where the evil one wants you to keep it. And those words, those little voices that are saying to you, no one's going to understand you, no one's going to believe you, you are going to be kicked out of the life group or out of your job or out of your marriage or out of your friendship group if you share that. Don't say anything. That's not God. That is the evil one who is full of lies. So that is just lies going into your head. But if we go back to God, take delight in the Lord. I'll read it to you, obviously. Can I also just say this morning, as much as we've got this joyful wedding happening this afternoon, and it's lovely to have everybody here, there have been a few bumps along the way, and obviously it's quite obvious about what's happening here with the pro-presenter. There's been some other bumps, technology-wise, that's been happening this morning, but we are not giving up. Because what is the main thing? We are here, we're going to worship. If you don't know the words, then feel free to sing La 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 or Rhubarb, or as I suggested to somebody else, we could pass the microphone around and do karaoke. And you notice that was my suggestion to move the microphone away. It was not going to come near me. So I appreciate you may not have seen all the words, but I'm hoping that you're picking up on the message that what are our heart secrets? What are our heart secrets? We have to take them to God. You cannot think that whatever is in your heart, that I'll just do this myself, but God, you've got everything else. Let your heart secrets guide your actions, and every morning just hand it to God. Good, bad or indifferent. Ill health, good jobs, bad jobs, no job, financial situations, relationship issues. Just give it all to God, because if your heart's desires are for good relationships and the opportunity to serve others and to worship God, I think God's just, and the angels will be clapping in heaven for you and cheering you on.